The roar hit Kayla Morgan like a physical wall. 50,000 alien voices screaming for blood in a language that sounded like grinding metal and shattered glass. She stood in the royal observation deck, hands clenched behind her back, fighting to keep her face neutral. Below, the arena floor stretched out like a wound in the earth. Red sand soaked dark from centuries of death. Queen Veshira lounged on her throne, scales gleaming like polished emeralds under the harsh stadium lights. Her eyes, vertical slits of pure black, fixed on Kayla with barely concealed contempt. "Your species claims to deserve a seat among the stellar powers," the Queen said, her translator rendering her hissing speech into cold, precise English. "Yet you come to us weak, soft. You carry no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. Tell me, human, why should Draxis Prime acknowledge Earth as anything more than prey?" Kayla had prepared for insults. The diplomatic briefings had warned her that the Draxians respected only strength. But she hadn't prepared for this, for the casual cruelty in Veshira's smile as she gestured to the arena below, where something massive and chitinous was tearing apart what looked like a six-legged bear creature. "We've brought proposals for trade, technology exchange, cultural—" "Words," Veshira interrupted. "Empty sounds." She leaned forward, and Kayla caught the scent of something acrid and alien. "I offer you a wager, diplomat. Send your finest warrior into the arena, barehanded as our customs demand. If they survive 3 minutes against the render, I will consider your proposals. If they die," she smiled, revealing rows of needle teeth, "well, we will know the truth about humanity." Kayla's mind raced. Refuse and humanity would be dismissed, possibly blockaded from this entire sector of space. Accept, and she'd be sending someone to certain death. The render was still visible below, and it was enormous. 12 feet of armored death, with blade arms that had just carved through alien bone like it was paper. "I need to consult with my team. You have 1 minute." Kayla activated her comm with shaking fingers. "Webb, I need you in the observation deck now." Marcus Webb arrived in 40 seconds, his security uniform crisp despite the planet's oppressive heat. He was 38, built like a middleweight boxer, with scarred knuckles and eyes that had seen too much. Former Force Recon Marine. Now her chief security officer. She pulled him aside and explained in rapid whispers. Watched his face carefully, waited for him to refuse, to call her insane. Instead, he looked down at the arena, studied the render as it paced, waiting for new prey. Barehanded only? That's what she said. Rules against using the environment? She didn't specify. Something flickered in his eyes. Not fear. Calculation. Then I'll do it. Marcus, that thing is... I know what it is. He met her gaze. But if I don't, we lose everything. Every diplomatic channel we've opened out here. Every chance at alliance. He smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. Besides, 3 minutes have lasted longer in worse places. Kayla wanted to argue, wanted to find another way, but time was up, and Veshira was watching with that predatory patience. We accept, Kayla heard herself say. The Queen's smile widened. Excellent. Prepare your champion. They took Marcus down through stone corridors that stank of old blood and fear. Draxian guards flanked him, their scales rustling like dead leaves. No one spoke. At the arena gate, they stripped him of everything. Comm device, boots, uniform. Left him in simple black pants and nothing else. The gate mechanism groaned, ancient gears turning. Marcus rolled his shoulders, feeling his spine pop. He'd trained for combat his entire adult life, hand-to-hand, weapons, survival. But he'd never trained for this. For walking barefoot onto blood-soaked sand to face something from a nightmare. The roar of the crowd swallowed him whole. 50,000 aliens screaming, some with mandibles, others with beaks, still others with mouths he couldn't identify, all of them hungry for the spectacle of a human dying. The sun of Draxis Prime beat down like a hammer, and the sand was hot enough to hurt. Across the arena, the render waited. Up close, it was worse than Marcus had thought. Insectoid, but massive. Its body was segmented black chitin that looked harder than steel. 6 legs, thick as tree trunks, forearms, two-ending and three-fingered claws, two-ending and curved blades like scythes. Its head was a nightmare of compound eyes and mandibles that clicked in what might have been anticipation. The crowd's roar intensified. They wanted blood. They'd paid for blood. Marcus started walking. Not running, not charging. Walking. His feet found the cooler sand instinctively, his eyes never leaving the render. He could feel his heart pounding, feel the adrenaline singing in his veins, but he forced his breathing to stay controlled. Panic would kill him faster than those blades. The render moved first. It came fast. Impossibly fast for something that size. Blade arms whipping through the air where Marcus's head had been a fraction of a second before. He rolled right, came up in a crouch, already moving again, as one of those scythe limbs punched into the sand where he'd just been. The crowd noise changed. Surprise, maybe. That he was still alive. Marcus kept moving. Never stayed in one place. The render was strong and armored, but it was also big. Big meant momentum. Big meant it couldn't turn as fast. He'd fought enough to know that size was a double-edged sword. Another strike. Another dodge. The blade passed so close he felt the wind of it. His mind cataloged everything. The render's joints, where the chitin plates met, the way it favored its right side slightly, the pattern of its attacks. 1 minute down. Marcus's foot caught on something, a bone buried in the sand. He stumbled and the render's claw caught his ribs. Not a direct hit, more of a glancing blow, but it was enough. He felt skin tear, felt the hot rush of blood down his side. Pain bloomed white-hot, but he used the momentum to roll away, putting distance between them. The crowd was louder now. They smelled blood. In the observation deck, Queen Veshira leaned forward. "Your champion bleeds easily," she said to Kayla. Kayla didn't respond, couldn't. Her eyes were locked on Marcus as he circled, one hand pressed to his bleeding ribs. Marcus's mind was racing. 2 minutes left. He couldn't keep dodging forever. The heat was sapping his strength. The blood loss would slow him down, and the render showed no signs of tiring. He needed to change the equation. The arena wall. Solid stone, 30 feet high. The render charged again, and this time Marcus ran straight for the wall. He heard the creature's legs thundering behind him, felt the displacement of air as a blade arm swept down. At the last second, he jumped left. The render's blade struck stone. The impact sent chips of rock flying, and for just a moment the blade stuck. Marcus didn't think. He grabbed the blade with both hands, ignoring the razor edges cutting into his palms, and threw his full body weight sideways. Felt something give. Felt the blade crack at the joint where it met the render's arm. The creature's shriek was deafening. Marcus fell, his hands slick with his own blood, but the render was backing away, its right blade arm hanging at an odd angle. Damaged. Not broken off, but damaged. 2 minutes down. The crowd had gone quieter. Confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, easy prey. The render circled now, more cautious, it had learned. That made it more dangerous. Marcus's vision was starting to blur at the edges. Blood loss, heat exhaustion. He needed to end this. 60 seconds left, but he wouldn't last 60 seconds. Not at this rate. The render charged again, but this time it used its clawed arms, trying to grab him. Marcus let it close, let those claws come within inches, then dropped and rolled under the creature's body. The sand was cooler here, in the shadow of the render's bulk. He grabbed a handful of sand and blood and came up behind it. When the render spun, Marcus threw the mixture straight into its compound eyes. The creature reeled back, mandibles clicking frantically, blinded. And in that moment of confusion, Marcus saw his opening. The damaged blade arm was hanging lower now. He grabbed it with both hands, planted his foot against the creature's thorax, and pulled with everything he had left. The blade arm came off. Not cleanly. The chitin tore and the joint ripped apart with a sound like breaking wood. Green ichor sprayed across the sand. The render's shriek could have shattered glass. Marcus fell backward, the severed limb clutched in his hands. 3 feet of curved, razor-sharp chitin. A weapon. 30 seconds. The crowd had gone almost silent. In the observation deck, Veshira was standing now, scales bristling. "Impossible," she whispered. The render was bleeding badly, but it wasn't done. It rushed forward with the desperate fury of something that had never known defeat, all remaining limbs striking at once. Marcus knew he couldn't dodge them all, so he didn't try to dodge. He stepped forward into the attack and used the severed blade arm like a spear, drove it up and forward with every ounce of strength he had left. The render's own claw caught Marcus's left shoulder. He felt bone break, felt his arm go instantly numb, but his makeshift spear found its mark, punched through the softer chitin between the render's head and thorax, sank deep. The creature staggered, its legs buckled. Marcus, his left arm useless, kept driving the blade deeper with his right hand. Kept pushing even as the render's claws flailed weakly. Kept pushing until the creature's legs gave out completely and it collapsed into the sand. Then Marcus collapsed too. The arena was silent. 50,000 beings, and not one of them made a sound. They stared at the human lying in the blood-soaked sand next to the corpse of their undefeated champion. Stared at the impossible. In the observation deck, Kayla was already moving, screaming into her comm for the medical team, but she stopped when she saw Veshira. The queen was walking toward the arena floor. No one moved, no one spoke. In Draxian culture, the queen never descended to the arena floor. Never. But Veshira walked down the stone steps, her scales catching the light, and she didn't stop until she stood at the edge of the sand. Marcus was barely conscious. He could hear the silence, could feel the heat of the sand against his cheek. His left arm was definitely broken, maybe his ribs too. He'd lost a lot of blood, but he was breathing. Still breathing. He heard footsteps, turned his head and saw the queen standing there, looking down at him with those black, vertical slit eyes. "Stand," she said quietly. Marcus wanted to laugh. He could barely move, but something in her voice made him try. He got his right arm under him, pushed. His body screamed in protest. Every nerve was fire, but he got to his knees. Then, with a final surge of pure stubborn will, to his feet. He swayed. Blood ran down his body in rivulets. His left arm hung useless, but he was standing. Veshira studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that made the entire arena gasp. She lowered her head. Just slightly. Just enough. A gesture of respect. "I have misjudged your species," she said, loud enough for her words to carry. "You are not prey. You are persistence hunters. You do not give up. You do not yield. You adapt. You endure." She raised her head and looked at the crowd. Humanity has earned its place. The crowd erupted. Not in bloodlust this time. In something else. Something that might have been awe. Kayla reached Marcus just as his legs gave out. She caught him, or tried to. They both went down, but the medical team was there seconds later. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, Marcus managed to focus on Kayla's face. "Did we get the treaty?" he mumbled. Kayla laughed, and it came out half-sob. "Yeah, Marcus, we got the treaty. Good." His eyes closed. Totally worth it. The medical team carried him out through the same gate he'd entered. But this time, the Draxian guards stepped aside with something that looked like reverence. In the observation deck, Veshira was already drafting the alliance terms. Below, in the arena, the render's body was being removed, with ceremony. It had died to a worthy opponent. There was honor in that. Word of the arena battle spread through the Draxian Empire within hours. Then to neighboring systems, then across entire sectors of space. The story grew with each telling, but the core remained the same. A human, barehanded, had defeated the undefeatable, had turned the arena itself into a weapon, had refused to die even when death seemed certain. It became a turning point. Other species who had dismissed humanity started to reconsider. Because if humans could do that, could win through sheer stubborn refusal to quit, then what else were they capable of? Marcus Webb spent 2 weeks in the medical bay. They saved his arm, though it would never be quite the same. The scars on his hands and ribs would fade but never fully disappear. He didn't mind. They were a reminder. When he was well enough to walk, Kayla visited, brought him actual Earth coffee, which was worth its weight in platinum this far from home. "You know you're famous now," she said, sitting beside his bed. There are holovids of the fight circulating on every major network. They're calling you the Render Slayer." Marcus snorted. "Terrible name. Could be worse." She smiled. "They could have called you the guy who almost died in an alien arena. That's more accurate." He sipped the coffee and closed his eyes in appreciation. "How are the negotiations going?" "Better than we ever hoped. Veshira is pushing for a full military alliance. Trade rights, technology exchange, cultural programs." Kayla shook her head. "Everything we came here hoping to get, and more. All because you wouldn't stay down." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I was terrified, man. I said finally, every second down there, I thought I was going to die. But you didn't." "No." He looked at his scarred hands. "I guess humans are too stubborn for that." 3 months later, the treaty was signed. Earth became a recognized power in the Draxian sphere of influence. Trade routes opened, technology flowed both ways. And when other species tested humanity, thinking they could exploit the new arrivals, they found something unexpected. They found that humans didn't fight like other species, didn't rely on natural weapons or armor or venom. Instead, they adapted. They improvised. They endured. They turned every environment into an advantage, and every setback into a lesson. They fought like Marcus Webb had fought in that arena, with intelligence and determination and an absolute refusal to quit. And slowly, the galaxy learned a new truth. Humanity might not be the strongest species, might not be the fastest, or the most naturally armed, but they were something else. Something that couldn't be measured in physical attributes alone. They were survivors, persistence hunters who had evolved to outlast their prey. And in a galaxy full of species who relied on overwhelming force or natural advantages, that made humans something truly dangerous. The arena on Draxis Prime became a monument. Visitors from across the Empire came to see where the human had defeated the Render. They stood in the sand and tried to imagine how it had happened, how something so small and fragile-looking had brought down a champion that had never lost. Queen Veshira kept a piece of the Render's broken blade arm in her throne room, a reminder of the day her assumptions had been shattered along with that chitin. She'd learned something that day. Something important. Never underestimate a species that refuses to acknowledge defeat. Marcus returned to Earth after his tour ended, retired from security work and tried to live quietly, but the requests kept coming. Training seminars, everyone wanted to know how he'd done it, how he'd survived. He always gave the same answer. "I didn't do anything special, I just did what humans do." I kept going. And maybe that was the real lesson. Not that humans were warriors or fighters or naturally suited for combat, but that they were persistent, adaptable, stubborn. They didn't need to be the biggest or strongest because they'd learned how to make the most of what they had. In the vastness of space, among species with claws and venom and natural armor, humanity carved out its place not through superiority, but through sheer determination. They became known not as conquerors, but as allies who would never abandon a fight, as partners who would endure any hardship, as the species that had walked into an arena barehanded and emerged victorious through nothing but will. Years later, when young Draxians studied galactic history, they learned about the arena battle, about the human who had changed everything. And their teachers always ended the lesson the same way. "Remember," they would say, "that true strength is not always visible. Sometimes it lies not in the weapons you carry, but in the refusal to yield." The human Marcus Webb taught us that, and the galaxy is different because of it. In the silence of that arena, when 50,000 voices had stopped screaming for blood and stood in stunned awe, something fundamental had shifted. Humanity had proven itself, not through technology or diplomacy or military might, but through one man's unwillingness to die. And in the end, that made all the difference.